an appointment that I accepted for an interview in about 5 minutes. And I do want to say I'm sorry, but I will have to take leave of you illustrious personalities here for a while. You know, I have to go. I'm sorry, Carrie.
Okay, it's okay. Is there anything you want to say before you leave, Bob, about, you know, the end of secrecy and the beginning of what's coming next? Because just as I went to get you today, you were addressing a group and you said there's going to be in the next 12 to 18 months some things that people need to prepare for.
Well, the gentleman I was talking to is an economist and a bit of a banker. And he's been looking at the statistics, the data, and he's been watching what's been going on the world markets. And he's troubled by what he sees. And he's convinced that we're not out of the woods yet on this economic thing. And he asked me, what did I honestly think the next year or so have coming? And I said, as I said yesterday, we're in for some bad times. We have not seen the worst of it yet. And I hate to tell you that, but that's true. We have not seen the worst. The other shoe has not dropped yet. And the only thing I can tell you is that in the next year and a half, we're in for some events on a world scale that is going to make 9/11 pale in comparison, and that is sad and tragic. But to leave you with this, I must leave you on an up note for the viewers who will be seeing this. And as Tolstoy said, there is that spark that burns deep within each of us. It will not go out no matter how dark the world becomes. And I want to leave this with the people who will see this tape. There is a tomorrow. The future of this species is glorious. It is in the stars. And they've got to have hope and not be afraid. And that's all I can say in closing.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, sweetheart. It's a pleasure.
It's an honor as always.
Thanks so much, Bob.
It's always a pleasure. Read this gentleman's book.
Absolutely, yes. Well, I've read his work, actually. I read
Old Warrior,
his work a long time ago. Before the organization of exopolitics was ever created, this man had the vision of something
He's
much
a true
greater.
visionary. He's a true visionary.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I don't think people even realize that this man is a true futurist, actually.
Well, if someone would be kind enough...
And he should be listened to in that way, because what he says today is often not understood. But I think it's always the kind of thing that years in advance, years later, they're going to say, he was one of the first, if not the first, in certain areas. It's a gift.
We need our prophets and we need our visionaries. And
that's right.
Here sits one.
I just feel that we need to realize that the rest of our family has been here visiting us, and also slightly off the planet and other places, and they're interested in watching, and they would not have survived as long as they hadn't gone through this transition that we're about to go through. And so you have to realize that they're friendly and not evil, mean creatures out there like in some science fiction movies.
All of them?
Anyone that survived, generally, anyone that survived that's worthwhile, you know, I mean, the majority, otherwise they would have destroyed themselves by now.
But you're not saying that 100% of the extraterrestrial races are friendly?
They have a different way of...
some are service to self, some are service to others. Service to self actually means that what they're... Because you haven't actually met them all, right?
No, that's impossible.
You were only exposed to a few.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about particular groups, but the thing is that in general, there was this type 0 that was talked about in type 1. They wouldn't have survived this type 0 to type 1 transition if they hadn't raised their consciousness to some degree. In general, that's the case. May have been some exceptions, but they're such a minority that they
well, actually, our government is their liaison is often with the service to self.
Yeah, that's right.
And the evil forces on this planet aren't doing it all on their own. They didn't think up all this stuff on their own.
Well, actually, humanity isn't doing it all on their own. They're being pushed and prodded by some unseen forces and unseen beings. It may be a philosophical difference, or
it's a philosophical difference. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, by recognizing their existence, I'm not giving them power. I'm just saying we've got to tell the truth here. There is evil out there in the universe. Well, it's not just. It doesn't just stop at the Illuminati.
There's darkness, but darkness is, for me, I view it as ignorance.
Ultimately,
the absence of light. It's not an opposing force, ultimately. There's light, and then there's no light, or interference.
I'm just talking about functionality.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we can, I think actually even you could talk about, Alfred, what we've been talking about off camera a little bit in terms of there is investigation at the moment going into some of the relationships that are going on behind the scenes with various races. And
yes,
you know
and sure. I mean, just to keep it down to specific data points, we know what Arthur has said here, that he's been to Mars. We also have another very credible whistleblower who we've talked about, who in 1980 went to Mars twice.
This is Andrew Bajada.
Yes,
yeah.
In the company of a CIA officer, Courtney Hunt, just to put that on the record, from through a Mars jump room, a teleportation jump room, from El Segundo, California, to one of the sort of bunker type bases right under the surface of Mars, and who walked around on the surface of Mars, and who in 1971, in the company of his father, who was a CIA contract officer type, met 3 Martian astronauts who were on a liaison and coordination visit at Curtiss Wright Air Force Base. And so we know that from at least 1971, there's been a coordinating and liaison type function or relationship between the Martians and the U.S. government. Well, from what I've read, the Martian civilization is a positive, ethical civilization. So to counteract, our strategy should be, as citizens, to encourage an open, strategic alliance between our culture, our open culture, and the Martian culture, and to make that available immediately at the highest level, which is a presidential acknowledgement of the existence and relationship with the civilization on Mars.
And that's one of the founding principles of exopolitics.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I would like to say that you are nodding, so you're saying, you're kind of recognizing some of the testimony that he's
I've never heard of this until now, this person or anything. And it's like, oh, no, someone else,
There's another one. Yeah.
And it sounds like a very similar kind of work, too. Very similar.
But I would like to say, and this is, I'm throwing this out here, I am familiar because I've had some personal contact with some, what I know of as Anunnaki, and that there are some, some positive Anunnaki, and there are some more negatively oriented, just like there are humans, they're good and bad. There are different Anunnaki, and I have to say that they're interacting with individuals, because I have had some interaction. They have made their presence known to me, and I know Bob isn't here to actually talk about this, but Bob has had his own interaction with Anunnaki that he has talked about with us, and I know he met them.
The Anunnaki are the exception that I was talking about, where it's But I really didn't